Hi everybody, this is Wasim. I hope you're well. So in my last video I spoke about how to build a culture for a startup, and in this one I'm going to talk about the next step, which is maintaining that culture. So you've built up a culture, everybody's happy, you're moving along, you're successful, life is really well in your startup, but then things start to change. How do you manage to keep your culture in control? Like I said in the last video, culture is a living entity. It's something which is constantly moving and changing, and therefore you really have to control it. As new people come in, new ways of working, and new ideas flow into what might be your culture. And to control that, you have to ensure that you've defined your culture really well. So if you haven't done that yet, if you feel like your culture is not very well defined, check out my earlier video because that will give you some tips on how to do that. So now you're ready, you're in a place, you're 3 years down, you're beginning to bring in some reasonable money, you've hired some people, your team is growing, your product is really well developed, customers are picking it up, you're the buzz, and as you bring people in, your team begins to bring in new ideas. So how do you manage that? First thing to do is obviously lead by example, especially in small companies and startups. Culture is set by leaders. It's maintained by employees, and it's probably regulated by HR. But the setting of the values in the mission statement is just half the battle. What you have to do is model that behavior. Make sure that you are a personification of that behavior. The famous book "Leaders Eat Last" is a great thing to read because it tells you about, look, you have to put everybody else first, and you have to make sure that you are uh, putting across these values that you've said, and you've written down and you've shared with everybody. If you're not telling the truth, or if you're skimping, or you're not working as hard as everybody else, or you're too serious, or you're snappy, or you're rude, or any of the things that might be might be evident in a bad culture. If you're doing any of those things, you're a hypocrite for telling other people not to. So you absolutely have to embody what your culture is. However, if you've decided that your culture is going to be, your place is going to be a nasty place to work, and it's dog eat dog, then maybe that's how you should behave. I wouldn't put a startup together like that, but maybe that's how you feel you'll be successful. Good luck to you. You'll find it difficult keeping employees, but maybe that's the way you want to go. So doing the right thing encourages other people to do the right thing. It encourages that kind of behavior in your team members. It builds trust in employees, and in between employees and leadership. And if senior leaders kind of act with outside of those rules, outside of those cultural norms in your organization, employees have to see that you'll do something about that. It's not okay for anybody to act outside of those cultural norms. That's very important. You have to lead by example. The next one is fundamental. Recruit and hire very, very carefully. Each individual that you add to your team has to understand and has to be a part of the culture's, the evolution of the culture. Thus, it's imperative to carefully evaluate candidates, not only their skills, but their cultural fit. What do they think is a normal way of behaving? What do they think is a normal way of doing things? It's very, very difficult to change individuals' actions easily. I mean, it is possible, but if you're a team of 5 people and one person is causing significant disruption because of their behavior, it's not the best use of your time to be having to go to that person saying, that's not acceptable, you need to change the way you're behaving, we do this, you can't do that. It's better just not to hire that person. And if they are behaving in a way that you didn't expect or they didn't agree to up front, it's best to get rid of them quickly and move on, because when you're a small company, one person adds a huge percentage to the total of the team, and their behavior can have a completely detrimental effect. So what you want to do is hire carefully, evaluate quickly, and deal with quickly as well, if they're not quite right. If they are right, you then bring them in and you show them that they're an important part of the team, and you ensure that they communicate out. They become a fountain of that cultural goodness themselves as well going forward. And third, of course, like I said, once you have somebody who comes in and is that fountain of cultural goodness, How do you recognize and reward those employees? So the people who are an embodiment of your culture, they go the extra miles. They work harder than anybody else. They are, they embody that cultural, your cultural values. Um, Make sure you go out of your way to praise them and highlight their behaviors to the rest of your team, highlight their behaviors to your customers as well. It's really important to, get peer-to-peer shout outs going for the right kind of behavior. It's great to shout out as a leader, so and so has done something which is really good. And obviously then what comes next is the perks and the promotions and the more money, because those are the people who are really going to move your company forward in the way that you want. It's not okay to move it forward generally if that's not what you want, because what will happen is your culture will then creep to somewhere that you don't want it. So it's very important to ensure that not only are you looking at performance, but you're looking at cultural appropriateness when you're promoting people. And to add to that, it's so important to hire internally. I would say 80% of the time you should hire internally. You should promote internally rather than bringing in somebody from the outside. Two things: A, it negates the risk of someone bringing in cultural practices that don't align with yours, and B, it makes people happy that there's a career here. I'm going to move up. I'm going to have more responsibility. I'm going to get more interesting things to do, and maybe that will involve more money and the perks that go with that as well. So it's very important to keep hiring from within, promoting up, and keep the great people within your team. The fourth thing to do as you grow is evaluate regularly. Evaluate your culture regularly. So as your company grows, as I said, lots of new people will come in and they will bring their own cultural practices and their own ideas of what culture should be or what work should be. And especially in the flat hierarchies of startups, it's very easy to allow outside influence to come in and infuse these new ideas into what your structure is. So what's very important is to get your initial as is idea of what your culture is, evaluate it regularly with the behaviors of your team and your behaviors towards your customers and your behaviors in building your products. Evaluate those against what your original core values were and your original culture was, and see what's changed. You can then sit down, bring all heads meetings, bring everybody in and say, here are the things that we've seen. Of the things that we've seen, A, B, C, and D, we don't like. We need to stop doing that. We need to go back to our original culture. However, E, F, and G are really great. X, Y, and Z have brought in sort of these new things, and actually they enhance our culture. They make it a better place to work. They make us better with our customers. They make us better at building our products, and they're enhancing the soft kind of value that we bring as a team, but also the bottom line. Then it's worth trying to keep those things within the firm. You then get this hybrid of a new culture maybe every once a year, and you ensure that employees are engaged. You're not kind of just trying to batter something into them that they don't necessarily agree with, and that way you really continue to have a growing culture that aligns with who you are. Hopefully you've really enjoyed that, and it's been useful to you. If so, comment, tell me what you think. Are you building out a culture right now? And if so, what are the challenges that you have? Put something in the comments. Let's have a conversation. Like, subscribe, and I've got some more of these videos coming up. Thank you. Bye.